Hi, I'm Suresh Venkat. I've got myself some FaceTime with the chairman of Steria India, Saurabh Srivastava. Mr. Srivastava, welcome to the show. My first question for you, I'm going to refer to an email that Microsoft's new CEO, Satya Nadella, sent to his employees, and I quote from that email. And Mr. Nadella says, our industry does not respect tradition, it only respects innovation. My first question to you, therefore, how do you rate the Indian IT industry on the innovation scale?
Pretty high, actually. I think most people don't realize the level of innovation that has happened in our IT services industry in itself. Because an industry that was growing at a certain rate when it was $1 billion is now 100 billion and is still growing in 2 digits.
And that requires a lot of innovation in the background.
If you don't innovate, you don't do this on cost. We're not the cheapest in the world at all. So you have to innovate. And I think in a sense, the way we have innovated is we have taken the value chain of delivering services to a customer, understanding their requirements. We've disaggregated that chain and we've done bits differently, put it back together again. Having said that, now there's a lot of innovation in just reconfiguring what you are to that customer. And so from meeting a technical requirement to actually addressing a business need, that is happening. And the second part that's happening is if you look today at the IT industry, the majority of our companies now are not really in services. The new startups are all about technology, about
Apps, products, technologies.
across the place. So is it innovative? Hugely. Could it be more innovative? Absolutely.
Around the world, there is this instinctive need to link innovation with products. Products like a product or product services like a Facebook or like a Microsoft or like an Adobe. India seems to be woefully lacking on the product side. Is it incorrect to link innovation to products?
Well, firstly, it's very incorrect to link innovation to products.
But it is a visible face of innovation.
It's even incorrect to link innovation to technology. You can innovate in the way you sell, in the way you market, in the business model. Some of the most successful organizations have risen around an innovative business model, not technology. If you think of Dell, you think of what? Some path-breaking technology? It's one more PC.
It's innovative sales model, the innovative online sales model.
So it's easier to think of it like that because if you're doing a consumer product, it's very easy to relate things to it. When you're innovating in services, the end person doesn't necessarily see what you did. So I would say certainly they're not linked. But having said that, if you look at products, when you create products for a market versus services where a customer already knows what they need, and therefore you can have a discussion and provide something to them. In a product, from the time you think of the product to the time you put it in the market is 18 months to 2 years. And therefore, you have to anticipate what a market would need because if it's a felt need today, you're already too late. And we don't have a big market for software products in India. And therefore, to anticipate a future need of a market where you're not an organic part is very hard. Those who are in there in the US get it wrong 99 times out of 100. To expect to have that happen elsewhere is hard. And I would give you the example of saying, apart from the US, how many companies can you think of that are not US based, that are known globally as big product companies? SAP, right? Who else?
Yourself?
Steria. But Steria is more a services company built around intellectual property that it does. Okay. But I'm talking of consumer products, which is what you were talking about.
Yes.
So in consumer type products, if you look at it, most companies tend to be US based because they have a big market there. You don't find companies generally from around the world because there they have to kind of mix intellectual property, some level of productization, and some service delivery. But I'd bring you back again to say, is Accenture a highly successful company? Would you say it's innovative?
I would assume
it doesn't have a product.
I assume they wouldn't have reached the level of success without being innovative.
So I would say lots of companies, if you look around, are hugely innovative. If you look at solutions that Steria has, for example, in security, extremely innovative. Okay. But because it's not consumer product, one doesn't link it. It's easier to look at Windows and
the Adobe Photoshops of the world. Yes. I'm going to contest one thing that you said. India has a huge market for mobile phones. It has a huge market for clothes, for automobiles. Why would you say it doesn't have a huge market for software products? And therefore, why aren't Indian companies playing in that field?
Yeah, no, market for clothes is very different. than a market for software products. Market for clothes means how many people do we have who
Let's
can
take
write a
cell phones,
check?
the closest ally to.
Yeah. So there are probably more people doing apps on phones here than in many parts of the world. There's not a market which pays very well, so you have to be doubly innovative, not just to have a solution, but also to have a business model that actually will allow you to make money on it. But in the mobile phone area, and indeed even in the internet area, I think there are a very large number of innovative companies. All of this market is very recent, and there's always a time lag. I mean, 10 years ago, we didn't have any venture capital. You need that to build a product.
As part of the ecosystem.
As part of the ecosystem. You have that today. I mean, just remember, 15, 20 years ago, there were no mobile phones. It takes a little while to come. 10 years ago, there was no venture capital. As it's coming together, I think it's
So we have the market piece, we have the audience piece, the consumer market piece, we have the venture capital piece. One critical piece that seems to be missing in the Indian innovation ecosystem, if I can call it that, is the sort of Stanford, Silicon Valley synergy that we saw. The IITs in India, for instance, still tend to be a little ivory tower and insulated from the world of entrepreneurship. What do you think will drive that kind of academia entrepreneur
So I think
synergy?
two things are missing. One is the academia industry collaboration. Because most of our universities saw themselves as teaching universities, not
as incubators.
Universities or incubators, is beginning to change slowly. I'm involved with some of the university incubators, and some of them are beginning to actually get into the groove. The second thing is social acceptance of failure. So if you go to Silicon Valley, like you said,
9 out of 10 fail.
On top of the whole tree, right on top is a successful entrepreneur, number 2 is a failed entrepreneur. Somebody working for an MNC is low down, somebody working for government is lower down. That, I think, also needs to change. And the last is in terms of ecosystem. I think an acceptance in government that entrepreneurship is key to our economic
Bankruptcy is not the end of the world. You can declare bankruptcy as a strategic tool and come back into business.
All the things, all the policy measures that allow entrepreneurism to be center stage will come from a recognition that key to economic growth is entrepreneurship.
Right. It's impossible to be at a Nasscom event or indeed any software industry and not hear whispers of wage arbitrage. Has Indian IT finally moved out of wage arbitrage? Are we up the value chain, higher up the value chain?
It moved out of it some time ago. It's not this year. Okay. If you look at what today, if you look at large global companies, they very often charge less than some of the leading Indian companies. Okay. So the wage arbitrage, I think, is something that's long gone.
It's an issue that's completely gone. So what are the new challenges for Indian companies? If we are not the cheapest in the world, what are we? Where do we stand?
We have to be the best in the world.
Are we?
I would say in services, this is the best in the world. There's no question about it. It's best in terms of Indian companies that are driving it out of here. And it's also best because global companies are leveraging their Indian presence for global markets. So the biggest sort of locations for most global companies outside of their home locations is largely now India. And in some cases, they're bigger in India. Accenture is bigger in India than it's elsewhere. Yeah.
Let me ask you a couple of questions about Steria's strategy in India.
Yeah.
One of the accusations against the Indian software industry is that they do not tailor-make, do not engage with, do not create products and services for the Indian SME industry, for instance, who seemingly cannot afford the high-cost services that Indian IT companies solve. Do you have a strategy for the SME market in India?
Steria has solutions which actually fit a little bit with SME, but fit in some key segments. So if you look at transport, they have they have solutions for smart cities. They have solutions for highways. They have solutions for security. So all of these don't necessarily fit for SMEs as far as Steria is concerned. They do fit sometimes with large corporations. They do fit very often with what we're trying to do in the states and at central level in improving governance. But I would say there are many companies who are building products today for the SME industry.
Okay.
And in many areas, what we do at Steria is use some of our own solutions, and sometimes we will partner with very small companies here,
and to
which are
sort of
SMEs,
hybrid solutions?
SMEs which have a piece of a solution, and we'll partner them because they can't access the market, and we'll help them access the market with a wraparound.
Okay. What are your other big challenges that you foresee for the year 2014-15 as Steria in India? What's the environment going to be like? The word VUCA is being bandied around quite a bit. Are you in a VUCA world in India?
I don't know precisely what you would mean by
Volatility,
VUCA,
uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, political risk.
Yeah, I think a lot is made out of it. We've seen much, much worse political risk and volatility. You look at 91 in that phrase, virtual bankruptcy, assassination of prime minister,
And three prime ministers in
three
1 year.
changes of government in 1 year.
Yeah.
We did okay. My own feel is we're really getting too concerned about that.
Okay.
My feeling is that I think we'll come out much better. It's going to be a very interesting election, but you can see that the debate is about issues and not about castes.
Okay.
That's a huge change.
And that's a significant change.
Significant change.
Right, my final question for you, Mr. Srivastava, the top 3 trends in your view that's going to shape Indian IT. When we're going to be here at Nasscom 2015, what are the top 3 things we'll be talking about in a year from now?
I think top 3 trends clearly is what do we do in terms of leveraging the internet. That's going to be a very key issue. The second key thing that we're going to see with our larger global players is how do they change their branding? Many of them are doing it, but how do they change their branding from being seen as a IT services provider to a business partner?
And that's going to be a significant shift for the
On
Indian.
branding. Many of them are doing that.
But we need to be seen as
But
such.
they don't see that, yeah. And the third thing, I would say a big shift also is if you look, we're home to the global in-house centers of all the large corporates.
Okay.
Steria has its biggest location right here. Is how do companies around the world figure out a way to leverage what's available here more for innovation?
When you say what's available here, do you mean the human talent?
The human talent, yeah. How do we leverage that more for innovation? How do we leverage it for increasing top lines rather than bottom lines?
Okay.
I think those 3.
So leveraging the internet, branding the Indian enterprise as a business partner, not
Yeah.
just a service provider, and using the Indian talent pool for global advantage. So, Chairman of Steria India, thank you for talking to us on FaceTime, and thank you for watching.